Well, hello there, reaction nerds and Linux nerds and tech nerds. We are going to look at a video here, why I code on Linux instead of Windows. And I have watched this video long time ago from Forest Knight. If you're into coding and stuff like that, he's actually a really good chap to look at. So definitely go subscribe to him. But let's look at why he code on Linux instead of Windows.
I keep getting asked this question when I'm asking y'all, should I stay with my dual boot? Should I VM? Should I WSL2, my Arch Linux distro? Even in my coding videos, why do I code on Linux?
Yeah, why? Why? You stupid Windows non-fanboy.
I actually have two main reasons why I code on Linux instead of Windows, and I also want to talk about the plenty of reasons why Linux is better than Windows, which are not why I code on Linux and use Linux, but they're nice to have. They're icing on the cake, if you will.
Richard Stallman's PP in your bobo.
Let's start off with the nice to haves. Privacy. If you don't know, Windows by...
So I call bullshit on this. Yes, Linux takes less privacy than Windows does. But they do this on fucking Facebook, or not Facebook. Well, what is he on? He's on GitHub, Twitch, Twitter, Instagram. All of those combined with YouTube makes the things that Microsoft takes from you like 1 to 5% of all of the data collected from you right now. I understand what people are saying when they're saying they're using Linux for privacy, but it's like, let's say you have burns all over your body. You know, you have burns, you got burned on your forehead, you got burned on, you know, your arms and your legs, and you only fix this area here. You get some burl jet on it, you get some water on. Now all my burn marks are fixed. I don't have any burn damage anymore. That's the extent that why this drives me nuts, is that they only care about this one thing that is the operating system. If you really care about privacy, it don't stop with the operating system. It goes into, I don't have my phone on me, but it goes into, imagine this is a phone. Your phone takes way more fucking data and telemetry than Windows does. Even your fucking credit card, your car, you know. Any device that have anything with GPS or connectivity to it is tracking the living shit out of you and infringing on your privacy. Any social media or anywhere you have to sign up with an account, they are taking data from you. But it's only Windows that is really bad. So if you care about privacy, you don't stop with Windows. Yes, it's great to get the Windows privacy out of the way and use Linux for that. It's a start. But don't think that, and this is what a lot of people, they do, oh, I cut Windows out so most of my privacy concerns are okay.
Default has every single piece of data collection enabled, meaning unless you go in and change that, they're gathering all of your data.
Google and Chrome and other software takes the exact same data, if not even more.
And also, they have a built-in keylogger. Did you know that? They have now implemented the ability to go in and disable the keylogger as well, but even with disabling all of this,
there are tracking cookies for websites that also have keyloggers in them.
Really know that it's actually disabling all of this? I don't know.
I'm not saying that we should just ignore Microsoft, what they're doing with Windows. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that, sadly, Windows is not the biggest problem when it comes to privacy.
With Linux, I actually have privacy. There are some distros that may want to collect some of your data, but you can really go in and actually disable these, and if you don't believe it, you can actually go into the code, considering the fact that Linux is open source.
Again, that argument is mute because 99% of people have no idea how to look at the code that are using open source software, and even people that know how to look at the code, they don't look at the code. Look at how many times the last couple of years we have found bugs and security faults within the kernel and other software that's been there for decades. You know, over a decade. 5 years, that's not half a decade, 5 years, a decade and a half. Where are all the eyes on the fucking code? And we're not just talking a 1 or 2 man development team. We are talking like the kernel that has massive amount of people developing for it. We're talking about big massive software like apt had problems where probably hundreds of people or close to hundreds of people are coding for it. Where are all the eyes on that software?
There's no proprietary software or anything hidden in there that you can't access and disable or remove. So with Linux, I actually have privacy. And with today's sponsor of this video, privacy.com,
fuck
share
that.
it with y'all. It crashed my entire computer and wasted a whole... Linux is much more reliable. Sure, it has its quirks, but I've never had it...
Again, this is what I say to everyone to say this, because it depends on your hardware and what you're doing with your systems. Find me a scientific peer-reviewed study that says that Linux by default and on average is more stable than Windows. All you can find is anecdotes. For me, it's more stable. I've been using Windows 10 on the same hardware and the same hard drive. Now we're using Windows 11, but I installed Windows 10 in the late late 2015. I have not changed the hard drive since. I've changed multiple CPUs, motherboards, and other components, but the hard drive stayed the same. Compared to Linux, that I've also run on said hardware, I have had less stability issues with Windows 10 and 11 on my hardware versus Windows versus Linux. His hardware may be different. That's why when people state that Linux is more reliable than Windows, show me a study, show me a as unbiased review of that study that you can find that say this. It's like me saying that Ford is the best car in the world because it's most reliable when I use it. All this is an opinion. There are no concrete scientific study that say this. It's all anecdotes, it's all opinions and stuff like that.
It crashed my entire computer and wasted a whole day of work reinstalling Windows.
I've had those problems under Linux plenty of time. Again, my experience versus his experience depends on what you're doing, what you're messing with, and your hardware. And now we're getting an ad again.
Oh, and speaking of Windows, if you're wondering why I have Windows on my computer right now, I didn't want to be a fake and be like, I only use Linux. No, I also use Windows, but I only use Windows still because Adobe CC. I've tried every way you could imagine to try to get Adobe CC on Linux, and
they all sucks and don't work right.
It just doesn't work how I need it to. And gaming. That's really the only reason. But reliability. Why do you think the biggest tech companies in the world use Linux, and in particular Linux web servers?
Because for web server, and here's again, the Linux fanboys love throwing it in Windows faces. Well, it's not just stability, it's also what is Linux providing those servers. So let's unpack this. This could be a long segment, so bear with me here. Linux basically took over Unix for the server market. Unix used to be the default for web servers and some sort of file server, certain workloads, where Unix was really, really great. Linux, which is way cheaper than Unix and can provide the same technology, and you can run the same kind of program, Apache servers, so on and so on. So companies started to move over to Linux, not because it was more stable than Unix, but it did the same thing for cheap. Even if they have to, lend out developers to make something work under Linux or giving back to the community, it's still cheaper and more efficient for them to do that. I don't think he's young or old enough to remember the Unix days. I barely can remember the Unix days. But in the 90s, Solaris and Oracle and all of those big, Solaris was a big Unix provider back in the day, Sun Systems and stuff like that, they had Unix systems that they provided to the industry. Linux kind of killed those off. To this, they provided to the server industry. Also, there's a massive difference between the hardware you run on a server versus the hardware that you run here, and the way that you run it. Not to speak about that, the complexity of let's say an Apache server or a file server versus the complexity of a desktop operating system is not nearly the same. You have Apache running, you may have some, services running to help you manage it, maybe some VMs and stuff, virtual machine management software and stuff like that. Versus on a home user, you have ever-changing hardware, you have software being installed and uninstalled all the fucking time, You have people that go in and fiddle around in the back end all the fucking time. Where on servers, people really don't fiddle with servers config files unless they really have to, in fear of something fucking up, okay? We also update way more, even on static releases on a personal computer than again we do on servers. Why you see distributions like Leap, and LCS releases don't have that many updates. That's because they focus on stability. They don't want to break API and API compatibility, meaning that you can crash a server if something breaks our program. So they're really, really picky when they are upgrading. Also because of downtime and all of that fucking shit. So for the workloads that we do, we can debate that we are actually taxing this operating system way harder as a desktop user and in a massive different way on a desktop than we do on a server. A server is really simple, if you think about it, compared to a desktop. A server, a lot of times, only have to do one or two things. Okay, you are a file server, you are a virtual machine hosting server, you are a web server, you are account management server, you are Active Directory server, whatever the user database server, you are an SQL server. They kind of have they have one or two tasks. For us at home, we put all of that fucking shit into our operating system. I'm running Windows 11 as a host right now. It's an editing station, it's a music station, it's a virtual machine station, It's a coding station. There's so many things that we do on our desktops that we don't do on servers. So we have way more requirement on a desktop than a server. So what I'm saying here is that the servers don't require much to be stable. There's not that many moving components to a server. So there's not that much that can go wrong. Like I have a NAS server over here. It's been running for years now. It's the free NAS. I could not use FreeSB as my everyday driver. But for a file server that only have to serve me files, work perfectly, flawlessly.
Facebook is run on Linux. Google is run on Linux. Amazon uses Linux. Even most supercomputers run on Linux.
Again, an argument you can throw out of the fucking window. Supercomputers is built with a really specific task in mind, not your average computer. Yes, technology for supercomputer triples into the server technology world, the corporate world, and triples down into the consumer world. We are not there yet. And what supercomputers are doing with, the way that they are handling CPUs, like sharing resources over a network and stuff like that, the software they use on those supercomputers are purposely built. Again, a supercomputer is not a gaming machine, a virtual hosting machine, Apache server, a file server, and all those things at the same time. They do high intensive calculations, and that's all they do for the most time. So it's a really specific task for a really specific workload that you can build a really specific, well-optimized program on, and you can streamline the operating system to only function for that existence. It's like taking the Linux kernel and a Linux operating system and make it only being able to run as a Samba server. It can't do anything else. So you take a lot of the complexity out of Linux and complexity makes things go wrong. So it's a really good Samba server because you're taking all of the extra load out of Linux and the distribution that you're running. But try and run that as a desktop. It's not the same. It's like talking about a Formula 1 car and you 4-door saloon. What he's saying here is that we should all be running around driving a Formula 1 car because it's and take the ones that are winning the race at the moment. We should all be running like Williams Formula 1 cars because they're the best Formula 1 cars in the world. Or they are winning all the championship. Yeah, good luck going shopping in a Formula 1 car. That's kind of what people are saying, but that's like, well, because they are winning all the championship in a Formula 1 car, we should all be driving a Formula 1 car because it's the fastest, best car. And supercomputers are basically race cars for computers. They have a really specific purpose. They are purposely built for that task. So is the software and the operating system.
Linux. Why? Linux is just much more reliable. Plain and simple. Linux is more...
Again, show me a scientific study that's peer-reviewed and have been done, reproduced by multiple sources that say that Linux is more reliable.
More secure than Windows, and there are two main reasons for this. One, because there are fewer amount of Linux users, hackers don't typically target Linux.
Again, security of obscurity is a fallacy within the security world. Go look it up. There's so many studies being done that you should not rely on security to obscurity. It's like saying I'm not locking my door because I live in the middle of the woods, and then one day I go down the kitchen and someone is squatting and peeing all over your fucking floor. Also, again, show me a scientific study, peer-reviewed study with reproducible data that tells us that Linux is more secure than Windows. Actually, I have a lot of problems with this video, apparently.
And I'm sure it also helps that Linux users are typically more tech-savvy than Windows users. Two...
No, that's not No, that don't help.
Linux is open source. Now, you may be saying, okay, well, that could mean hackers have an easier in, because the more you know about a system, the easier it is to hack it, right? Right. This is true. But because it's open source, you also have more eyes on...
Again, previous statement, it's a fallacy to say that, because why do we then have security problems that's 10 plus years old in Linux and open source software? By his own definition, we have more eyes than proprietary software, so we should not have the same problems as we have on the proprietary software. When we do, where's all the eyes? Where's all the fucking eyes? Like, where are the eyes? The evidence has not shown us that this has happened to be true. The only evidence we have that has shown that what open source is great for is for learning people coding and make it easier for people to contribute to a project.
On the code, monitoring for issues. So what are the odds that a hacker is going to find a backdoor vulnerability and exploit it before someone can catch the vulnerability and patch it themselves?
Look at the Bluetooth daemon under Linux that had like a vulnerability for ages. Sudo is like the recent one that people got really fucking scared about, had security issues that's been there for ages. There's been a lot of problems within the kernel that's been there for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years plus that hackers could, if they were really targeting Linux, could have been exploited. The good thing about Linux when we're talking about this is that Linux is not looked at so much, so we can, again, it's not security by obscurity, that's not a security strategy, but it gives us a buffer. And if you look at who is figuring out all of these security faults within Linux, it's almost never the community. It's some form of security expert firm that makes money off finding security risk within software. Rarely do you see an article that Josephine in her basement with Bob trying to dance in his mom's bikini found a security hole in Nano. So again, where are all the eyes when you have to either pay or have specific companies and organizations finding the problems for us? Again, it's so out of fucking touch.
Linux users don't have to wait for Microsoft to investigate a vulnerability and fix it.
We do, because we have to wait for security companies to find them a lot of times.
They can fix it themselves. Linux has lower hardware requirements, so if you're...
Again, not... Yes, you can run Linux in a toaster, but can you use Linux on a toaster? What if you open a web browser? What if you do this and that? Windows also have an IoT version of Windows. Yeah.
If you're running on an old laptop or an old PC with not too good specs, install Linux. It'll run a whole lot better than Windows ever will. It's free, so if you're building a new PC or something, you don't have to shell out $100.
That's a good point. You don't have to pay for shit.
$100 for Windows. I know you can get like Windows keys for cheaper, but I've always been a bit wary about those. Actual pro tip, if you do have an old computer, a laptop that you are no longer using, crack it open. There's going to be a Windows key somewhere inside there that you can actually use when you're installing Windows 10 or whatever new Windows there is.
Not if you build it yourself. This is for pre-made computers.
But the cost, it's not too important to me because I don't mind spending money on a product that will help me out, save me time, or make my life easier. That is actually incredibly applicable to this thing right here. Now, this isn't one of my main points as to why I use Linux, but I do really like that there is a tight Linux community.
Oh, he's one of those. No. No. The Linux community is fucking awful. It's toxic. It's... I've been dealing with the Linux community for 25 plus years. Been using Linux for 25 plus years. And one thing that has just kept getting worse and worse and worse is the way that the Linux community are towards each other and other people. The Linux community is at war with proprietary software, Windows, corporations, Apple, Systemd, snap packages or flat packages, i3 versus GNOME, tidying Windows Manager, this versus this desktop environment. There's always something to bitch and moan about. Read the fucking manual kind of people. The hashtag #IUSArts, by the way. Oh my god, let's hate on Ubuntu and all of those fucking things. No, the community is a fucking mess. You have to take a weed wagger and whack all of the fucking weed away for like a month or so till you find the Garden of Eden, where all of the good people are in the Linux community, and then you don't fucking go outside of that fucking garden. So basically, find a forum, a Discord, a channel, find a support group that treats you the way you like to be treated, and don't go outside of that unless they start to treat you in a way you don't want it, because it's really difficult or really tiresome to find that Garden of Eden of people that are really nice to you, because you have to go through a lot of fucking bullshit to get there.
Don't get me wrong, it can get kind of Stack Overflowy. Y'all told me that's some of y'all's experience with Linux.
Like, what rock is he living under?
But it's not, I've never had that bad of an experience with the Linux communities as I would with plenty of coding or especially Stack Overflow communities and forums like that. If you don't know what I'm talking about, check my last video.
I think why he has not had that big of a problem with the Linux community is because he's already used to navigate toxic communities, which most people are not.
Or 2 videos ago, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Finally, my 2 favorite things about Linux, and really the main reasons as to why I use it. It is incredibly customizable. That's what I like. It's open source, it's customizable, and I can make it look and do and feel any way I want. If I want it to make it just like Mac OS, I can do that.
And that's why I use it also. Well, that and I love the takeoff of operating systems. But yeah, it's an amazing thing, young Padawans, and I'm getting way overexposed here. Give me a second. Yeah, it's amazing that you can do that customization, and I love it about Linux. I love I have the control to do whatever I want with Linux. I love it. I love it.
Now, there are different distros where you don't have to do so much work in making it customizable, but you can still customize those. I use Arch Linux, by the way. Probably already mentioned that in this video, and people have already joked me in the comments. But it's an incredibly...
Yeah, who cares? Who fucking cares? Like, honestly, it's... Oh, drive a Chevy, by the way. I'm better than you. No, nobody gives a fuck, okay?
Customizable Linux distro.
It's a little bit narcissistic, to be honest.
And that's why I like to use it. I'm kind of in limbo right now, if you saw my last video, where I haven't done much customization because I deleted my old one for some weird reason, but it's very customizable, and I plan to rebuild my Arch Linux system and like...
Now I'm thinking about it, I think we have the same fucking monitor. The Asus he has over in the back end over there looks exactly like mine. Neat.
3 weeks. So that probably means 4 or 5 weeks.
We have also the same webcam. That's my old webcam he has up there. I just have the privacy protector on it. Oh, my autism is going mental right now. Anyway.
Software development time, kind of how it works. And 2, the terminal. Like, I know there's WSL2, I know there's the new Windows command line, but the Linux terminal is just vastly superior than Windows command line or anything that Windows has to offer. And I'm also going to bunch in with like the terminal, the package manager. The package manager, I can install, delete anything I want, all of it, without having to worry about all this random stuff that Windows wants to install or how it wants me to uninstall it. And if I uninstall it, it'll still have all of these other files that won't get deleted. It's very easy to use.
Linux do have junk left over. It really does. Caches and like go into your .config folder. Is it as bad as on the Windows? Nah, I don't really know. I don't think it is, but I have noticed that unless I'm using the purge command, my .config folder can get really fucking messy really fast.
Use a Linux terminal to manipulate your files, your apps, and everything that you have exactly how you want it. So if you want to remove everything, you can remove everything. If you want to install something, you just type in a simple command. Working with the code, working with Git, all of that. It's just, it doesn't feel right to me on Windows, and trust me, I've tried again and again and again. The Linux terminal is just better. Bash, Putty, I don't care. It's not the same. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. Please.
So yeah, please go subscribe to him. He has some really great content. I will, however, say that this video here, he has massively fucking drinking the Kool-Aid. Like, he has been around the fucking water cooler with Richard Stallman, and Richard Stallman have, like, roofed it, the living shit out of him. Because most of the things here is his experience, he is giving off as fact. His opinions he's giving off as facts. And for him, that may be true. Linux may be more reliable for him, Linux may be more stable for him. But then using arguments like supercomputers and the corporate world, it's not the same as a home computer. It's not. My biggest problem with videos like this is that when you're trying to tell people something about Linux and it's an opinion, make sure that you tell people that it's an opinion. So what I wished he would have said is that, in my opinion, Linux is more stable. In my opinion, Linux is more secure. In my opinion, Linux is more reliable. I think I already said that. And I think that's because I believe that because it's open source, I think that people are looking at the code more and can help out more than proprietary software. And because it's used on servers and on supercomputer, I think, and therefore I believe, that it makes it better for the home computer. Because then he's not stating it as a fact or as an argument that is like, well, look, if they are doing it, I should be doing it. Then he's saying it, this is my data point that I am using to make my conclusion. I'm not saying that they are right, I'm not saying that they are factual, I'm just saying that this is what I think. So therefore, it's up to interpretations. When he lay out this video, they sound like facts. This is typically Linux fanboyism going nuts, if you ask me. Anyway, see you all later. Go subscribe to him for the code videos, and have an amazing day.